tough.
Hey, I'm Nancy Vandell, chair of the Bylaws Subcommittee meeting, and I call the meeting to order at 9:01. And I have no conflicts. Can everybody introduce themselves?
Michael Beachley, scribe, no conflict.
Susan Schomburg, no conflicts.
Wyatt Angelo, no conflicts.
Tom Syke, no conflicts.
Thank you all. Welcome. Thank you, Michael, for doing the minutes when you weren't even able to attend the meeting. As I mentioned in my email note, I'm going to defer them till next week because we just haven't had a chance to review them, but thank you for doing them.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not sure, did you send them to everybody?
Yes, I did.
Great, thank you.
We just got back into a town. We went down to California to bury a very close relative, a Vietnam War veteran. It was not easy, and I did the eulogy, and so it took me a long time to write that, but it was worthwhile. It certainly was worthwhile. But I'm home.
Well, I'm sorry that you've had to go through that loss.
Yeah, well, we all have to go through. Yeah, you know, it's going to happen. I'm next.
Oh, don't say that.
Okay.
No, one never knows.
Hey,
Right?
one never knows, do one?
Okay. Well, welcome back, and thank you for taking the time to review the video and all that, and writing from that. So, chairperson's report. Actually, did everybody have a chance to look at the agenda and any comments on the agenda? We're going to go through my report, which is actually going to be fairly substantive. Wanted to just briefly talk about a holiday meeting schedule, and then go into the policies and procedures, action plan, and and then review the. Oh, this is my printer printed on both pages. And then if there is any public to comment, they can do that, and then go through the calendar. So welcome, Mark. And so our chair, Mark Everett, has joined us. Welcome, Mark. Okay, so we've all done our conflicts, and we're just getting into my report, so it's timely that you're here. Mark, please feel free to speak up at any point in the meeting. So in the executive board meeting, it was quite a bit there. I know Susan reviewed the video. I don't think anyone else probably saw the executive board meeting, but we spent quite a bit of time on FEMA and then also on some partnership issues. So I wanted to talk about both. I just put in this morning into the meeting folder a proposal from the NCA, specifically from Rand with a different hat on, of partnering with the NCA on some communication tools. So basically, he has written a grant that was approved by the NCA at their Labor Day weekend meeting to purchase the kinds of tools that Sarah has been using for hybrid meetings when she comes in for meetings, particularly for the community plan meetings. And they've gotten approval to fund that, but they would like us to hold it and be able to share it. And it sounds like in some way to take some responsibility for it. So I offered to help him write up a proposal about it to present to the board at the December meeting, just because I have a format that makes it a little easier to understand all the implications of that. But in a moment, I'll go and share that document with you that is basically his proposal to the NCA. And the pertinent part is the last sentence in there where it talks about the NCAC. So that's one. And then another one, potential partnership, is that the NCA, I believe it's the NCA that's asking for the use of our email system. I had misunderstood initially. I thought they were asking us us to give them our email list, but they're not. They're just asking us to be able to send out a request through our email system for donations for the Midnight Pavers project, where the Midnight Pavers have gotten a grant for this year. And apparently Tillamook County operates on a calendar fiscal year as opposed to a July to June fiscal year, which is odd. But they had Tillamook County had actually provided funds in their budget for about somewhere between $49,000 for materials to be able to fix the roads around Nesquin. And I think specifically in the village. As long as we, as the Midnight Pavers group, which is, I don't think, a formal 501c3, hires a contractor, and they had found one, and then has volunteers to be able to do the work. So in our board meeting, it kind of came out that that's not going to be able to be done this fiscal year. So Tillamook County would have to also reauthorize that money in the budget, which is possibly not going to happen just with their budget issues right now. But anyway, this is something where the question really gets down to, can people piggyback on our email list and how? So that gets into policies and procedures. So that's something for us to consider under the partnership area. So I'd like to talk with you guys about that just in terms of some initial thoughts. If anyone would like to work with me on a general policies partnership kind of a thing. So in that respect, that had come up a month and a half ago. And I have been promising some language around partnering that I received, that I have obtained from another group that I used to work with closely that has some really good language around it. And the gist of that is that as long as the groups that would be partnering have similar what's the word?
Charters.
Missions. Yeah,
Missions,
charge.
charges,
Thank you.
yeah. Mhm.
Missions. That, you know, there's nothing in conflict regarding the missions and that kind of thing, that there shouldn't be an issue. I mean, that's just kind of the bottom line. It goes into a lot more of how do you evaluate that, but basically that's kind of the bottom line. So, so that's one area that we talked about. And then the other area was FEMA and what's happening with FEMA. So why don't we just start with the part about the communication tools? I'm going to go ahead and share. Hopefully I will find them. Zoom is requesting to bypass the system private window picker and directly access your screen and audio. That's a new one. I guess I'll say allow. Can everybody see this?
A little bigger would be better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. A little bigger.
Good.
So this is basically what has been approved by the NCA, that they basically have a grant for $1,748 to purchase this camera and microphone system with an extended microphone and a projector. The laptop would have to be provided by somebody operating it. And the tools would be held by the NCAC Communications Task Force, who would also, it sounds like, provide people to be able to use them for meetings of anybody who might be wanting to use them, I guess, or however this is written. So at this point, I'm going to, over this weekend, be writing up a justification form. So some of the things that I'm wondering is, you know, some of the implications here is what happens if these tools get lost, broken, stolen, you know, who's responsible for replacing them? What if there's a conflict? I doubt there would be, but in, you know, two groups wanting to be able to use them at the same time. What if our personnel, you know, to me, this would be something for Gary and the communications task force to look at whether they want to provide those that personnel, et cetera. But, you know, it could end up, the whole purpose would be to provide hybrid meetings. And right now, my understanding is the NCA has meetings only in person. And so this would allow them to be able to have hybrid meetings, their 2 meetings a year, and perhaps for their board meetings, as well as we could have meetings where Sarah doesn't have to be there to provide the equipment. So Sarah has very generously offered, you know, to provide the equipment and to be there whenever we have anything, but you know, she's extremely busy, so it's a lot.
So
So
the thing that I wonder about is why do they want us to keep it rather than them? There's more of them than there is of us.
yeah, good question. So yes, so
I think
that
we're
would be an
better
alternative.
organized, Tom.
Pardon?
I think we're better organized.
Okay.
My initial thought too is we don't necessarily always have a communications task force who reports to the secretary. So if they're picking, would they want just one person to hold it rather than a whole task force, which could be 0 people or multiple people?
Right. So that's really, I'm going to stop sharing. So that's really, there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered. So this format that I like to use for proposals includes a background. Why are we bringing this proposal? The proposal itself and how much it costs. A justification section on why this would be, why we think it should be approved. An alternatives section on what could be done instead, and a risks section on what are the risks, and I've outlined some of them here, and how they would be mitigated, and a futures section, like what would happen in the future. Technology can change, you know, et cetera. So a lot of this can be laid out, but that an alternative would be exactly what you said, Tom, that the NCA holds it. and then why that would be or wouldn't be the proposal. So what I was planning to do is just put out what I know into this format, send it to Ran and to Mark, and then they can kind of go through and see how you know, Ran is suggesting this, so as chair of the community task force, and see how they might answer some of the questions that will be in that. But if you guys have some other thoughts about it, like you just brought up a good one, Tom, on why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they maintain it? And Susan, you brought up the communications task force. So
Can
would
I
it be a
just
group?
add
Yes,
something,
please, Mark.
Nancy? So the one thing that I would say, and we kind of got, I think, a little bit the cart before the horse on this one. And Rand did email me, and I was aware that he was going to apply for it. And I said, it sounds good, but it was just it was just an email between he and I. And I think that if we're looking at policy, I think it's always good to present any grant opportunities that might arise to the executive board so that there's a conversation about whether it, you know, some of these things right out of the right straightforward, so that it's like, okay, yes, this aligns and this looks like something that would be, and go ahead and apply for this if you're a member of the NCAC. That's what I would say, because otherwise you get folks who might, you know, I don't know, be an officer, be a member, applying for grants and dropping them at your door and saying, let's just take this. And you're like, well, I don't know if this fits, and I don't know, you know, all these things. So, you know, this one I think is okay. I mean, I think it's fine. It's a good purpose and things, but I would say pretty strongly that in the future, any sort of grants that are to be considered for the NCAC to apply for and accept, have to be presented to the executive board prior to any application.
Nancy, I
Sounds
got a
good.
question. And
Uh-huh.
it's to you and Michael, I think, probably. But in a situation like this, where we're talking about not only partnering with somebody, but also intermingling, I guess, or commingling financial responsibilities, do we really need to look at a bylaw change as opposed to, policies and procedures?
That's an interesting point, Wyatt. My first response is probably not. If we have a pretty clear policy that the board can follow, because things like that are a little bit more flexible than simply bylaw structure. They really are clearly a policy thing, but these conversations, they're taking the lid off of funny little boxes.
Yeah.
and stuff's coming out. So I would say, really, if we're pretty clear on policy, we're probably fine.
I agree. I think it's a good question, Wyatt, but I agree with Michael. I think the key is whether it aligns with Article 2,
Yeah.
our mission for being, and so I think as long as it's kind of linked to that in the policies, I think we're okay. The procedures follow, right? So the policy could be that, just what Mark was saying, basically, that we should examine what how it aligns, and that and then the procedure itself could be how people apply to the executive board. I don't know. When you guys see this proposal format I have, I'm wondering if it might even be appropriate to put that format into the procedures for these kinds of proposals. I used it for work, and I've used it for volunteer activities. It's simple, and it really forces you to think about all the implications and how to answer the questions that come out of it in a structured way. So
We could put that in references. One thing I want to mention is I wasn't at every one of the community plan meetings, but I don't remember it ever being discussed. So I believe that, to correct the minutes, he was speaking as NCA, not NCA committee, the subcommittee, NCAC subcommittee.
Well, that's interesting, because he did say that he named one of the committee members that from the community plan committee, that subcommittee, that was really pushing this. So it may have been that the two of them were talking about it, and it never came into a regular meeting of the subcommittee. So thank you for that clarification, Tom.
Yeah.
So you guys are
it actually looks different if it's coming from the NCA than from inside the NCAC.
right. And you're absolutely right. The proposal that I just showed on the screen came from his proposal to the NCA, not to us. So I had asked him to send me this just so I had some language to be able to put in this proposal document that I'm drafting for him. And it's just a tool for him. I'm not going to be advocating one way or another on it. It was just to help him with a proposal thought. So anyway, but I wanted to bring it up to you to know, because it does get into our policies and procedures, and for us to know that these kinds of things are coming up. And it will help as we talk about the partnership issue. So
I
the other one.
I also wonder
Go ahead.
too, is if we are applying ever in the future for grants from the NCA, if it shouldn't be from the executive board applying to the NCA rather than an individual member representing the NCAC who doesn't have authority, so to speak.
Right. And I don't think Grant was doing it as a member of the NCAC. I think he was
Okay.
doing it as, he said he was doing it as, he was apparently in charge of the grants for the NCA. And he wrote it up with that hat, was my understanding. Mark, do you know if that was correct? I can't hear you now, Mark.
No?
There, yeah, now we can.
Okay, sorry. I'm messing with these headphones. I can't get them to work, but so I think I don't know the answer to that, how he was applying for that. So I don't know.
And I think that's a point well taken, that if something's coming from the NCAC, it needs to be approved by the executive board at least, and possibly even by the membership, which would be another question for us on, do we recommend that something like that go forward to the membership. It goes into what is the executive board's authority and what are subcommittee authorities. So, you know, if say your community plan subcommittee, Tom, had actually taken a vote and to recommend this grant, you know, I think what we would be saying from what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be submitted to the executive board as a committee as opposed to an individual. So would that be correct?
Yeah, I would have objected had we had that as a.
Oh, okay.
Because of those very reasons. So
Uh-huh.
I could say, I'm pretty sure I wasn't there when it was discussed.
Okay. And I am not frankly not completely surprised by that. So, okay.
You know, if I can make just a general comment over and above this conversation that Wyatt kind of touched off in my mind is that we're labeled and titled as a bylaws committee, which task has basically been completed. And now we're dealing with policies and procedures, which is not particularly a closed box. I mean, this goes on and then it goes on and then it goes on, because the more conversations we have, the more questions rise about what is policy and what is procedure and how do we deal with this and so on. So there, you know, in the case of bylaws, we write bylaws. They're submitted to the membership, they're voted on, and that's a done deal unless we come back and change them sometime in the future. But policies and procedures and discussions like this are an ongoing feature, which I think is perfectly fine. But it's interesting that this is not a simple thing. This is an ongoing thing, and in an organization like this that is primarily not an official body in the sense that we have a city council and all of that sort of thing incorporated, as it were. This is a forever kind of activity, and I think we need to just sort of keep that in mind as well. It's an interesting process in my mind, and yeah, we could be going anywhere on this.
Yeah, particularly now. I mean, I think since we're writing a whole new document, but we are a standing subcommittee and to be elected, each year, but it is standing, and I think there may end up being more work done on policies and procedures over the years than the bylaws, although I see back and forth, right? We're not going to have to hopefully change bylaws as much, but as we develop policies and procedures, there may be something where we need to go in and tweak the bylaws. So
this is less a task group than it is a process group.
kind of both.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll produce, but it's an ongoing process.
So I think this year, where we're doing the first document, there's going to be far more effort. But you're right, Michael. I see that this will be some, as things come up, there'll be all sorts of times when this subcommittee will need to be meeting and discussing different things, or we find that something that we write didn't work in reality. We need to go back and redo it. So yeah, it'll be a living thing. So do you feel like at this point that well, I'll draft, I think it's on my list. We're going to do that here later, but the partnership thing, draft that. And maybe you're on it with me, Tom. It's Wyatt and me. So we'll draft up something regarding this, but does anyone have any objection if I just ran a suggested format for him to then fill out? We'll have it partially filled out and some things for him to think about.
That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, you're talking about potential partnerships with other organizations here.
Well, I'm talking specifically about his proposal on the on this equipment, and then he would then take that to the executive board.
Well, I have some comments on general partnerships with other organizations when that time comes.
Yeah,
Okay,
we have a slot for that. I've added a bullet in cooperation for applying for grants to that heading. So I'm modifying the document as we go.
Great.
I-
Thank you, Tom.
If I could just add, Nancy, I think
Yes, please.
when we were talking to Rand in the executive committee, I think that we did say to him that although the NCA has, I think they've basically approved the grant, we have not accepted it
Yes.
to date, and that will be a membership decision. And so it's sort of just sitting there right now, in my opinion, and that's something that we recommend that to the membership, and the membership votes on it from the executive board. We would not approve that as an executive board. That would be a membership decision.
Right. Yes, we did. You're correct. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. And so I think you're going to be putting it on the agenda for the December board meeting, and then I think that's,
You mean the
Right.
general meeting or the?
I mean, the November executive board meeting, sorry. And then
Yes, right.
to bring up then if the board wants to approve it, then to bring up to the membership. So
Yeah, in December.
in December.
Yeah.
And then right along that, with that is the midnight pavers thing, which sounds great, but again, as we were asking questions in the board meeting, first it sounded like that the money from Tillamook County was a given, and then it doesn't sound like it necessarily is. So I think they're already collecting donations through the NCA for it. And they have a mechanism to return the money if the county isn't able to provide. They're asking for close to $50,000, I think, in donations to kind of match what the county would provide.
Well, I think they're asking for 25, Nancy.
I guess is that
I
right?
heard the
Okay.
number 25 and they're right at around 13, and that was the
That's
Rand
right.
wanting us to send something to all the NCAC members, which is just it's like a public service announcement, honestly, that, if you'd like to donate to the midnight pavers, here's how you can do it.
Mhm.
And so it's sort of asking for donations. And
Right.
that's what that's about. Yeah.
Right. And then some of the implications of that, I mean, it does sound, this is again where policies come in is they're not a 501c3, they're not any kind of an actual organization. And is there liability if someone were to get injured doing that work? Could any of that fall back on us? I guess that would fall back on Tillamook County. So I think that would be something where we'd probably need to get county approval. Maybe not just to send an email. You guys, Wyatt, you're the lawyer. Would there be any cause for concern there?
I'm retired, Nancy.
Okay, since I'm
How
a non-lawyer,
convenient.
I will give you an opinion. If they are asking for voluntary contributions to
Yeah.
their own voluntary work tasks, we're just passing along information.
Yeah.
Now, if we allocated funds, that
Yeah,
would be
no.
different.
Yeah,
So
and we're not talking about that.
I don't think there's any problem.
I sort of
Okay.
likened it to a bulletin board sort
Yeah.
of deal. It's just, we're just passing that information.
Yeah.
We're not collecting the funds, and we're just,
Mhm.
it's a PSA, public service announcement. That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
And
Right.
that's a nice way to look at it. I wonder, Tom, could you add that to the bullets under partnerships as
Okay.
kind of
Okay.
PSAs or just email list items or something like that?
Okay. Here's what I captured for policy for grant. Shall be applied with the executive board. Approval for both application and acceptance of grants approved by the membership. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
And now you wanted me to add to relationships with other cooperation with other organizations in applying for grants.
Yeah, just email announce
Public service.
sure, from other organizations as well. I guess that's part of the main title. And there may be, or more urgent things where we feel like we should go ahead and authorize a grant as a board,
Mhm.
where there isn't time before a meeting that's coming up in 2 months and it's not urgent, or it's not important enough to do a special meeting. You know, I think we'll have some discussion on whether it needs to be approved by the membership
Okay.
in all times.
Okay,
This one's kind of a major one. Thank you, Tom.
I'll just add the if possible in there. We'll make it better later.
Yeah, perfect. And this is our 11 now. Oh, we're up to 11. Okay, cool. So the next, anything else you want to talk about in terms of partnership kinds of things before I get to FEMA? And I realize I'm taking quite a bit of time on the executive board stuff, but I think it's kind of important. So.
But the only comment that I had about partnerships and such is the caveat that we are an advisory council, an advisory committee, which should draw some boundaries and some, fences between advocacy of positions and so on and so forth. So at least help us to clarify what sorts of advocacy we can be involved in and what we cannot be involved in. That's going to be a little tricky to word that, but I think it's an essential boundary for us to consider.
Well, I think the
Absolutely.
fact that we're a creature of the county as well, Michael,
That's right.
really limits us.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But it is an important thing that, oh, go ahead, Susan.
oh no, I know I spoke briefly with Nancy about this. It's very interesting because historically, the NCA has had the broader membership, person-wise, and the NCAC, the predecessor to it, was under the umbrella of the NCA. So this is flipping it on its head, where the NCAC now has more members, like 700 plus email addresses, and the NCA doesn't have the reach. They only have like 200 plus. So it's very interesting for me to see historically how it's flipped on its head.
Well,
Thank you, Sue.
one of the things we might consider is that the NCAC may report the perspectives of its members without taking a position on any particular issue, but that we are simply acting as a voice for them. And that, and so, there's a difference between, hey, this is what our people have reported to us, and this is what we think. There's a difference between there. And that's something I think we have to press around with and make sure that in the policies that's clear. Because there may be an issue in the future that we don't anticipate, we don't know about yet, but it may be an issue that our membership feels very, very strongly about, and they want a particular voice to be passed on to the county.
Well, and that's one of our main purposes, I think.
Yeah,
So
right,
public
right.
statements, policy 9, public statements and positions, and kind of how do we come up with that? And,
Right, yeah.
we have minority reports, et cetera, which really, and advocacy is in there because that can be one of our missions. In some cases, we're going to want to take a position, in other cases, maybe not. And we may have conflicting opinions among our members. So how does that get handled? So yeah, that's going to be an important section. And it leads us right into the next item from the board meeting, which is our FEMA work. So how many of you were able to attend Sarah's meeting on the FEMA issues?
I
I
did.
saw part of it, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was quite frightening. So-
Yeah, I thought it was bad, but it wasn't that good.
Yeah, I heard that comment, Tom. I heard you. It's a good comment.
That pretty well says it all.
Yeah.
Gosh, election, anybody? No. So Tom or Mark, may I go ahead and share
Yeah,
what you have in the email? So
yeah.
Sarah emailed the CAC chairs, letting them, and others, I guess, and letting them know that she's going to be having a meeting on November 14th. She'll be presenting information on the FEMA options to the Board of County Commissioners and Planning Commission at a joint meeting on Thursday, November 14th at 7 p.m. at the Port of Tillamook Bay Conference Center. So it's also going to have a virtual option. And she is inviting people to attend and do public comment and asking that people be limited to 3 minutes per person or entity so that the Board of County Commissioners and Planning Commission can hear from us. So the board at its last meeting talked about the possibility of calling a special meeting to have a official response from the NCAC. So that was deferred just because at the time of the board meeting, there wasn't a lot of information about her timeline, although county is required to get a response by December 1st to the FEMA on which of 3 bad options they're going to take. In the meantime, Sarah's trying very hard, and I think the county is extremely lucky to have her to push back at seeing what they can do to get FEMA to back off a little bit on the timeline and working with other entities in the state. So, Mark, have you had? I think you were going to be having a CAC chairs meeting with her. Did she
Yeah, it's
expand
supposed to
anymore?
be on Tuesday on election day is when we're
Oh,
supposed
that's
to
right.
meet.
Oh,
And
great.
so I did email her, and it looks like it's on for 2 o'clock on Tuesday. I don't know what she's gonna say that day, but it's pretty. I mean, I think, I don't know if you've mentioned this with the executive board, we kind of set aside a possible membership meeting date of the 9th, so a week from tomorrow. And what we talked about was that if we had enough information to present to the membership, we might have a conversation about the FEMA issue and then present sort of just really a draft, or put together a draft. Or she may give us on Tuesday some suggested comments, or I really don't know what to say. If we were gonna say something at this point, I'm not sure I don't have enough of the details. I don't think. I didn't grasp onto those during her presentation. So on the 9th, we set aside a date, a possible date. It's going to be really, really close, because if we meet on Tuesday, then I might get some information. If we don't meet on Tuesday, I don't get any information. And then we have at least 24 hours. This would be called a urgent meeting, membership meeting. I think it's 24 hours
It is
a notice.
maximum. Yeah.
Maximum. And so I'd like to give 48 hours. Emailed Candace and I told her we might have this, but it might be, right at the last. I said, I'm hoping to have more than 24 hours notice. So all that to say is I don't, at this point, we don't have enough information about whether we're really prepared to hold that meeting or not. It'll depend.
And I know in her presentation, she said that she had some suggested language
Yeah.
that she was going to send you, but it sounds like she hasn't done that yet, that we could use as, to consider so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But but this is something that affects every NCAC member, regardless of whether their property is in the zone or not, because of the infrastructure that can go around your property and through your property, et cetera. So it can have a huge impact on us, regardless of what option of the 3 that they take. So just to back up for those of you who weren't attending, but FEMA is requiring Tillamook County to come up with a plan and pick one of 3 options for them to be able to provide insurance, emergency disaster preparedness coverage. And if we don't do it, then they're not going to provide it. And option 3 is to delay, and then we're not covered, right? And options 1 and 2 have to put plans in place by July 1st, I think it is, that requires just horrendous, basically stopping all permits for a while. I'm probably overstating it. If somebody else would like to clarify, but it's
Actually, option 3 was abatement, which was to stop all human-caused improvements. Basically puts everything on a standstill. And option 4, which you didn't say, is to ignore them, and then then we would suffer the consequences.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, you have to say all 4 of them when you list the 3.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
living in Nesquin full time now, I mean, the flooding this year has gotten off to a very early start, which doesn't bode well.
So,
But one more thing though on that.
mhm.
The implication was that not only would there be, if we ignored FEMA, that actually might cause them not to give us assistance during emergencies.
Right.
Which is actually dramatically worse than everything else.
Right.
That,
Thank you.
that ain't right.
Yes, I agree.
You know, that sounds pretty perfunctory, and I don't even know if that is
Draconian is what I thought.
well,
And
draconian. That's the word I was looking for.
And
Draconian.
it affects every county in Oregon except for 7 or 8 in the southeastern part of the state. And
punitive
but-
actually is a word.
but apparently Tillamook County is affected almost worse than most, but they're also prepared. But all the counties,
Yeah.
other counties except southeastern are
At
not.
our place,
So
at our place, we talk about it fairly often. The big one, the subduction, tsunami, all of that business. We have, we've gone so far as to have a go bag that is very, very complete, and we review it all the time. And with plans on how to get out. I mean, we go through all of that stuff. For FEMA to say, well, if you don't follow all rules, we're just not going to show up. It sounds pretty bizarre to me.
and to give such short notice. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's crazy.
Yeah.
They're responding to a lawsuit, but if you haven't had a chance, if you weren't able to attend it in person, it's worth going. It's in the NCAC meeting archives, the video of the meeting, and I encourage you to watch it.
Mark, is that CAC meeting, is that closed, or is that being Zoomed?
It's not. It's generally just the CACs. Michael, how do I say this? She runs some things by CAC members to get our feedback as how our members would feel about it. And so she uses us a little bit as a sounding board, if that makes sense. And so,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
And then she also conveys information to you as well, correct?
Yeah, some of it's not out just yet, and some of, it's hold on to this for a bit. It's one of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Nothing that's not going to come out eventually, but it's just like timeliness of when they come out, sort of thing.
Right. But, in my mind, this issue is right at the heart of Article 2. Our mission is to, if we possibly can, to provide input. I think she said there would be, the county commissioners are going to take something from an organization probably with a little more impact than if there are 30 people stating their individual views. So it could actually be both. But so I think, Mark, you were going to decide after you meet with her next Tuesday on whether to call a meeting, and I guess we'd have to call a urgent board meeting too, so we know what to present, right?
Yeah.
So you could put
Okay.
out a heads up for a possible meeting, and then that would cover you for the notice.
Right.
Yeah. We could, you mean like right away then, Tom?
Yeah,
Right.
right away. Say, it's possible we may have information on this date.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
pick a
I
time,
think-
pick
I
a
think that would
time,
be
pick a
good.
date, and then cancel if you need.
Yeah, okay.
I think that would be a good way to do it, because we could always cancel. We could even always just have a meeting, even if we decide not to have a group thing, we could still inform people more briefly. But I think we even picked a time of 2:00 on the 9th.
Did we? Okay, let me look
Mhm.
here. On the 9th, yeah, 2 o'clock, right? Okay, I'll let Candace know then to put that on the calendar.
And we could send out an email to, because
I'll
that
have to
actually be a week notice. It wouldn't even count as a,
Right.
well, I don't know. We'd
That's
have to look on
14
a
days, I
special
think.
meeting.
Yeah, 14 days for a normal membership meeting, I think is
Yeah.
the timeline, so it falls somewhere. It's probably would be what I would call it
Be
an
the urgent.
ur-
Yeah.
urgent meeting, and we're just giving much more notice than the minimum.
Mhm, mhm.
Um,
That way people
I'll
can
let
plan.
Gary and Candace know that today and for 2 o'clock next Saturday.
2 o'clock.
That would be
Yeah, and
great.
then hopefully that we have CAC members, chairs there at the meeting. So hopefully we have it, and hopefully there's others there and that are thinking the same thing that sort of we are thinking, and there'll be a conversation about that, and we can sort of start to gather notes about what we might put together. So,
So let me clarify again, that's Saturday on the 9th at 2 o'clock.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe in the meeting notice, Mark, you could ask Candace to include a link to Sarah's talk in case people
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
have a chance to talk about that or hear that, and they'd know more what the issues are. Because I think people hear FEMA and may not realize, hey, this could actually affect my ability to make changes to my property. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all I have for my report. And I realize it took a long time, but moving on to the next agenda item, discuss the holiday meeting schedule. So basically with that, I'm wondering what you guys would think about canceling our December 20th meeting. I'm happy to keep it or not keep it, but we will have just had our December membership meeting. And I thought, why don't we? So what would you like to do? Would you like to go ahead
Seems
and
very
take a
close.
break?
I'm in favor of it. It seems very close to Christmas.
In favor of canceling?
Yeah.
In favor of canceling.
I
Sorry.
am
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, on the 20th, we're having my piano group over for a Christmas gathering on that morning as well. So
Okay, I'm here. I'm seeing a lot of nods. Any objection to our canceling the meeting? Then okay, we will cancel December 20th, and I will let Gary know for the calendar also.
So
All
Nancy,
right.
then we would still meet though December 6th, the first meeting in
Correct.
December. Okay.
Yes, because that'll be right before the membership meeting. So I'd like to go. Hopefully we'll have some things that we want to be able to bring up at the membership meeting, which would be the following, well, the second Saturday. Okay, moving on to our document and our action plan. I sent out what we had discussed last time about people going, the teams going through the different policies. And Michael, we kind of assigned you to a couple, but if there are others you would like to swap with and join, you're welcome to. So why don't we just go through them? And I just ask that you do like one. If you have more, that's great. But so policy 1, I know Wyatt and Susan, you were looking at member access to NCAC records.
Mhm. We traded emails back and forth, but we haven't actually spoken on the phone. But I think Wyatt had a really good start.
I sent it to you, Nancy.
Yeah, I saw that too. So at this point, do you want to discuss it at this point, or are you two talking about it and you'd like to present it at the next meeting?
Maybe Susan and I should talk it through it. It was pretty bare bones. Susan gives a lot more credit than I would.
Oh, hardly. No, but I was chatting with Nancy, and I think because it's just policy, not procedure. It's more like, excuse my voice, like a policy statement to keep it just simple. 1 or 2 sentences and then we flesh it out in procedure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay.
But I thought, Wyatt, what you had was great.
Okay. And Wyatt sent it as a note for things he and I are working on as well. So we can throw that up. Wyatt and I have not had a chance to talk about that yet either. So we traded emails back and forth as well. So I'm kind of thinking I liked what Wyatt joined. Wyatt sent some things on conflicts of interest and what was the other one? Anyway, and you know, the honor code and that kind of thing. And I like what you said, Wyatt. I think I wanted to change it a little bit with taking some of the legal terms out, but other than that, I mean,
I guess I'm not quite retired.
you're not quite retired, so no, it sounded good. They were brief, but why don't we defer those for the next meeting? Does that sound okay? Okay.
I don't know, Nancy, when you change those, is your process then to go ahead and give those to Tom to include in our kind of our
Yes.
fleshed out outline? Okay.
Once the teams decide what they want to do, then to give as a proposal. So I don't know if it'll actually go into, I guess the way you're doing the document, Tom, is to kind of put in what people have and then just put their names on and for discussion, correct? I mean, you kind of have 2 different documents, right? One that we've kind of said yes to and one that we're in discussion on.
Well, I have been adding stuff that I know about into it, which is kind of cheating. But I haven't put names on the things, and I should do that. So I'll do that.
We don't have the option of not for attribution.
Well, or just maybe have something where it's in color or something indicating that it's for discussion as opposed to we're recommending. Maybe different, I don't know, a column or something that says the status of it.
I would think that the entire document is up for discussion. And once we get things fleshed out, we'll just go top to bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because we're just doing the policies.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did a procedure, but that's okay.
Okay.
We could review that sometime. I did the procedure on suggested reports, and that there's some ins and outs to that. Wound up taking a whole page.
Okay. And Michael, you probably saw in the video, we're now calling it PP&R.
Right, I saw that, yes.
All right, and then
Actually, I included that in the minutes as well.
yes, you did. Thank you. And then periodic surveys, Susan and Michael, did you have a chance to? I know Michael's been gone, so.
Yeah, no, we have not. Susan, I will, I know you're in and out and so on and so forth. I will take the time to write out some narrative and send it to you, okay? So you can bounce it back.
Thank you. That sounds great. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't call you yesterday. I was airborne, so.
Oh, you were airborne. Well, I'm glad you landed well.
Thank you. I am too, always.
Where were you?
I'm in Tahiti.
Oh,
on a work flight.
Oh, come on. Jeez.
What time is it there, Susan, right now?
It is 6:54 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
What are you doing wearing a down vest?
I was cold when I woke up.
Oh, okay.
This is amazing. I mean,
and
sometimes
Nancy's
it's 2 in the
got this,
morning.
and Nancy's got this beautiful background. In her picture here, that looks like Tahiti to me.
I'll show you.
It's supposed to be Nesco.
Oh no!
This was
no,
Zoom's AI attempt at Nescoing. So it was the closest I could find. I actually put in a search of Nesco and Oregon Beach into the AI for Zoom, which is new, and Yeah, this is this is one of the things. There are all sorts of options, but yeah, thank you. Okay, so you guys will meet, regarding the surveys, there's actually quite a bit to this one. Susan and I were kind of chatting about that earlier too, and there's a lot to go into how a survey is done, whether who needs to approve it, when it goes out to the membership, who's it going to,
Yeah.
so there's a lot in that one.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
of the things about surveys, having taught persuasion and propaganda for years, is sometimes the manner in which you verbalize or write up surveys kind of predetermines what the answers are going to be, and so that it's a concern.
It is. It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something my father and my sister both are quite expert at, and yeah, it's um, there's quite it's not a science and an art on how you write those questions and how they're administered, etc. So
Well, next time I see your sister, I'll ask her about that.
you should, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael and my sister do community theater together in
We did.
Corvallis. So,
Yes, a number of times. Yeah.
um,
Your sister's a good actor.
so yes, she is. And I'm sure you are too. I haven't seen you on stage, Michael, but I'm sure you are.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definition of emergency meetings. Susan and I met and actually talked. And here they should be called urgent meetings. On policy 5, we should change that to urgent meetings, Tom.
Okay.
And that was quite the discussion in our bylaws when we were doing
Yeah,
the
I remember
bylaws.
that. Yeah. I think I did this outlined earlier. No, yeah,
No
done.
problem.
Done.
Thank you. So anyway, and we're coming up with one right now. So this is, Susan and I are drafting that, and we can report out at our next meeting. But who determines? How does it get determined? Well, it's the executive board that would probably determine an urgent meeting for the membership, but it's really kind of the chair that's going to need to determine an urgent meeting of the board, most likely. So that's kind of what we were thinking of in terms of policies. Who determines the need for it, and what criteria should be used for an emergency meeting? And then under procedures, we would go into notice and that kind of thing. So this is kind of our first example. And I know as we were doing bylaws, there was quite a bit of pushback from a couple of people about why would we ever need one? But here's an example. So, and I think I needed to go back and find Sarah in one of the meetings we had on bylaws said something about different examples of where she could see urgent meetings would be needed. So I'm trying to find that because it wasn't in the feedback sessions. And handling requests for time on the agenda. Susan and I are working on that. So relationship with other organizations, I think we've already talked about. Wyatt and I are working on that. I'm taking the lead on it. And then interactions with outside organizations. So I had a question as I was going through this. Is policy 7 and 8 the same thing?
I think it
The
is,
previous
Nancy.
wording for 8 was making NCAC recommendations, which is also kind of like policy 9, which is public statements and positions. So I'm wondering if we need to kind of clean up the wording on policies 7, 8, and 9 to clarify a little bit.
Well, I think 9 is arguably different than 7 and 8. What's now 7 and 8 look like the same thing. The last note I had was to move interaction with outside organizations between 7 and 9, but I think
Right.
it just should dissolve into 7.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay. Okay, and then public statements and positions.
That's kind of different.
Yeah. And I guess I see that as being not just public, but recommendations to the county, or it could be even to things outside the county. I know that, Article 2 of the bylaws relates to things that aren't necessarily recommendations to the county, but could be recommendations to other outside organizations. And it kind of gets into a monitoring task force, which the board also talked about quite a bit in this meeting, about whether to set up the monitoring task force. And I think the consensus was that it would be worth looking at and talking to Guy Sievert about getting something like that organized. So I don't know, would you like to say anything about that, Mark?
No, I mean, just a little bit. I mean, guys, actually, Guy sent me something this week regarding the, they're gonna, it's a project that's gonna involve the highway there next to Nescoin and replacing a bridge. I think it's Butte Creek Bridge or something, and it's, so it's another one of those things sort of to monitor. I don't think the work's gonna start until 2026, so it's a ways away, but these kinds of things are a guy does a good job of kind of having his hand in a lot of different things, and we're just looking for some, maybe for representatives from the NCAC to sort of just monitor one specific area, whether it's water or roads or emergency preparedness or whatever it is, and report to the membership on what they learn at a general meeting. And that's something we're looking at sort of expanding through the NCAC and one of the, I guess it's the outreach committee. Or
The monitoring task force.
Monitoring task force. We're growing. So
Yeah. So, and in the current, is it the procedures, the policy, Tom, where we've got a listing of the different tasks that would be under the monitoring task force, the different areas. I know that there's came right from Guy's email from a long time ago. It's somewhere in that document, in the PP&R document right now.
Yeah, okay, about procedure 12 has got basically kind of cleaned up slightly from what Guy had said.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, it's in the meeting folder. It's the version that was current as of this morning. Okay, and then public statements and positions, which is basically policy on issuing these kinds of recommendations. Tom and I have not worked on that, or I have not worked on that. So with Tom, so
neither have I.
We're deferring. And then outreach communications would be Susan and Michael, and I think mainly Susan taking the lead because she's the only one at the moment on the outreach task force, and hopefully we will have more. And Michael, because he's a communications expert. So so I take it with Michael being gone, I'm guessing you guys haven't had a chance to do that.
No,
right?
no. And why don't you jot that down, Susan, and send that to me, and we'll pass
Sounds
that
great.
back and forth. Okay, that's
Sounds great.
on your flight back from Tahiti.
I'm working.
Working. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Between snacks and dinner. Yeah.
Well, I will say, I do have to clarify there. Susan is the purser on these flights, so she's working.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
not just
That's,
on the flight, but before the
yeah.
flight, and
I shared with Susan that Sandy and I met working for the airlines 57 years ago. And I understand the job pursers have. It's a darn tough job. It's a big one.
Okay, then definition of the honor system. Wyatt drafted some notes, and we'll have that out next time for sure. And so thank you, Wyatt. That's one that I think when we get into the procedures, is going to have to be out there in some detail, because there is so much. Or excuse me, not the honor system. I'm thinking of conflict of interest. That one's going to be more. I think the honor system's fairly Really simple.
Yeah.
Privacy policy. Wyatt and I will work on that. Records requests, Wyatt and I will work on that. And parliamentarian, Michael, I think you'd already sent something, correct?
Yeah,
Or no?
I did. It's done. It's already been submitted.
Okay, thank you. And then minutes of NCA committee and subcommittee meetings, which was new from the last time. This is just one thing I wanted to clarify on the minutes. I haven't had a chance to read them thoroughly, but when we talked about this last time, we were talking about in general, not for our group subcommittee, but in general. And I did bring up in the board meeting about that the bylaws do say that every meeting needs to have written minutes. And so Rand mentioned that the community plan task force, or excuse me, subcommittee had not been doing that, but he felt like they should, and he was going to go back and make sure that that changed. So he volunteered that. So so I think that clarification was helpful. And I think that was it. So
Except for the fact that we have added the applying for grants as policy 15.
thank you. Okay. Yes. So was there someone who would like to work with me on that?
Which is that again?
Applying
This
for
is-
grants.
Yeah.
Oh, apply for grants. Yeah.
And Tom actually put some wording on it, which may be all we need for the policy part.
Yeah, why don't you and I figure out if
Okay.
that's enough?
Thank
I
you.
think it is.
So, and so that's new policy 15 because we've taken out policy.
Yeah, as we
Policy,
spoke, 7
8.
and 8
So,
have now
so
been combined.
I'll send out a new note with the new numbers along with a link to this document that as Tom has updated. And I want to thank you guys. Yes, excellent. Excellent. Are there any other comments on the policies and procedures? I think what I'd like to see next time is let's actually have wording out. Does anyone see any problem with getting wording to Tom by a week from Tuesday? So that would be the 12th to be able to include. And if you could
That sounds reasonable.
on all of these, and if you could CC me, I'd appreciate it. And then that way he can put it in within, how much time would you need, Tom? If we all got it to you by the end of the day of the 12th, how much time would you need to turn it around and have us be able to see it before, a couple of days before the meeting?
Couple of days before the meeting. Really, a couple of days
You-
would be the latest, would be guaranteed to be in there. Earlier would be better.
Okay, so shall we make the deadline Monday,
Yeah.
the 11th, or would you rather have like the 10th, Sunday the 10th?
Yeah, the 11th is fine.
Okay, so we'll make it the 11th, but as he said, if you have anything earlier, go ahead and send it, so he's not having to do it all at the same time.
So Nancy, just clarification, you want it for every policy, something
Yes.
by the 11th. Okay, great.
Yes, so this afternoon, I will send out a revised list here, but it's basically this one with some different numbers and adding in a new policy 15.
I'll turn this within the next hour, and then you could go by that, so you won't
Thank
have to
you.
guess.
Okay, thank you.
Because I did actually change emergency to urgent, and a couple other things as we talked.
Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, does that sound doable to everybody? If okay, that would be great. So at the next meeting, let me just make sure here. Hold some agenda. So at the next meeting, we will go through these policies and procedures. We may have some things to talk about from the urgent meeting that's going to be coming up, because that would be before our next meeting. but we'll be spending almost all the time just going through these policies and procedures. It may end up being policies. It may end up being a longer meeting because of that, but out of that meeting, I would hope we could then start talking about procedures. So.
And
I
also
think
if everybody could look at the procedure one, and knock any holes in it if I got them.
Okay, thank you. So that's another action item. Look at Tom's procedure 1. Okay, so that's the meeting and action item summary. Mark, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, I'm just formulating the email to Candace and for the urgent meeting, membership meeting. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but I don't know if I should say something about, I was going to say something that we were acting proactively in scheduling the meeting as we're awaiting information from the county. I guess my question is, would we hold the meeting even if we don't get any information from the county?
I think we should.
Okay.
Really, I mean, I think I think you're going to get some information, but just to let them know, even about, just to very briefly let people know that this is coming up and that there is a meeting on the 14th.
Actually, if there's no information, that's information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's been a little bit hit and miss on the CAC chairs, and I'm a little nervous that it's on that day and everything else.
I
So
mean, they've got a whole month to figure it out.
yeah. Okay. I got it then. Yeah.
Mark,
Well,
Mark, remember
even
that an urgent meeting is a special meeting, and so there's the meeting is limited to whatever it is you describe.
Yeah. Okay.
that's a really good point, Michael. Thank
Yeah.
you. The other thing is, even if you don't get much from her,
Mhm.
she should be able to send the suggested wording on some things, and she should be able to send her slides. So, you know, I may ask her for that as well, just as a member, say,
Yeah.
can you please
Yeah.
send out the slides? Because several people were asking for them.
And what does 170 feet mean?
Yeah. I know she's meeting
Hello.
with the steering committee on Wednesday, the 6th.
Oh,
So so that's,
Has that been changed?
I think that's been
changed to the 6th. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Changed to the 6th. Yeah.
Is that what it's called now? Is the steering committee? And I've been saying community
Or the-
plan is.
thought it was a subcommittee.
It's a community, it's a community,
Steering committee.
community plan steering subcommittee. is the
Okay.
official title. It's all of those and more.
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions on the email, Mark? Yeah, I don't think you should feel bad if I mean, I just don't think we'll have to cancel, but
Yeah.
I think by sending it,
You're raising.
people will,
Yeah.
And you have a link to Sarah's talk, video of the talk. I think hopefully it will raise, if there's something in there saying this is likely to affect you and your
ability to make any human changes, human caused changes to your property.
This is big. This is really big.
Yeah.
And they may not have caught it the first time around, because a lot of times people think of FEMA and Florida hurricanes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So this actually has a direct impact on permits.
And no impact on the bears.
The bears have been quiet for a change. I hope I haven't jinxed myself by saying that.
Or maybe in your neighborhood.
Oh, really? They've moved.
Yeah, South Beach is pretty nasty.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well,
2-3 times a week.
Ooh.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
we have STR people who can't seem to figure out how to
They don't know what to do.
secure.
Is it mainly 1 or 2 houses?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
geez. In the village, we learned recently that someone who is not an STR owner, but just a part-time, they had a mother bear and 2 cubs living under their deck that they did not know about.
Oh, they
On-
came
on-
home one day.
And that would be a problem.
Yeah, and that's on Salem Ave going up the hill towards the
Wow.
Chelan. Yeah,
Wow.
right close to the Hot Cafe.
On
Oh
South
my
Beach,
goodness.
Yeah.
on South Beach, there was a mother bear a couple of years ago with a couple of cubs, and she's gone now. But the couple of cubs grew up, and now they're partners, and they go
Huh.
around and do all kinds of nasty things.
Well, on that happy note.
Oh,
I'm
incidentally,
going to-
I have one comment.
Okay.
In listening to the video, you had a discussion of the concept of ex officio.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment on that. Robert's rules indicates that the chair is always an ex officio, or the president or whomever. The presiding officer is always an ex officio, not required to attend. But any other officer is not unless designated as an ex officio. So, Mark?
Yeah,
You-
You have
okay.
you have another title.
Yes. you do.
Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking as well, Michael, except I thought Tom had brought up a good point in there that that might preclude people from being able to have 2 of us talk to Mark.
Oh,
So-
yeah, I saw that, and that is an excellent comment, Tom. I
So
mean,
this is a little different than a typical organization.
Right,
And
yeah.
so I kind of think, I almost think we should say they're not. You know,
Well,
I mean-
but think of it this way, even regardless of the ex officio title, Mark is a member of the organization, the general organization, and any 2 of us contacting him follows the rules dictated by public meetings law. So, you know, whether he is ex officio or not, it still applies.
Well, unless he's a member of our committee, and
Yes.
then 2 of us cannot.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Mhm.
See, unless we're in a public meeting like now,
Thank you.
if that we can't have 3 of us meeting outside non-publicly. So that's where the key is that if he's considered a member of our committee, ex officio or not, and it could be voting or non-voting, right? As according to Robert's rules, typically voting, but then we can't have 2 of us talk to him outside of a public area. That
I
was
think
the
it best not to
technicality.
ask.
Yeah.
Let's not ask. It's assumed that ex officio means not really part of the business of this committee, just there as a fly on the wall. No offense.
Well, ex officio is actually defined in Robert's rules as like an automatic member.
And an
So
ex
with
officio-
full privileges, except sometimes not voting.
That's right. An ex officio always has the right to vote unless specified otherwise.
Okay, so that's another policy.
Yeah.
Ex officios can't vote.
That's often the case. Yes.
Well, that would actually be in the bylaws.
Yeah, that should be.
If we make it where they're not
Okay,
voting. But
fair enough.
anyway, I think that was my fault for bringing it up in the first place. But Tom had a good clarification. So I think if we ignore the whole thing, and Mark,
Yes.
it's great that you're coming and you're adding a lot to
Yeah,
it. and
thank
we're
you so
just-
much.
And I think at this point, if 2 of us need to contact you, we'll do it.
Mark,
Otherwise,
Mark,
it'll
can I
mainly be
ask
me.
you a question quite on the side. This thing about school board, what school board are you sitting on?
It's the Forest Grove School Board.
Oh, okay, not the Tillamook School Board.
No,
I
or
understand.
Newburgh.
Or Newburgh, yeah. Okay, I've been following that. I've been following that one.
Yeah. It's, you want to stay free of entanglement if you
Yes,
can
indeed.
anymore. So.
All right. Well,
Okay.
wish you a great couple of weeks. Let's hold our breath on Friday, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
I'm going
Thank
to
you.
remember to stop recording now. Meeting adjourned at 10:20.
Thank you.
Thank you.